Yet another commitment for Auburn football post Big Cat weekend in 2024. We got another one on the defensive side of the ball to talk about, number 9 after that weekend. Let's get into it. All the things that you need to know, and of course, what it means for Auburn football coming up right now. War Eagle, everybody. Welcome back to E2C Network, aka the Auburn Experience. We're all about Auburn sports, Auburn culture, Auburn family stuff here. The best way that we can say it is if it's orange and blue, it is what we do. And we thank you for being part of all things orange and blue here. So on this live stream today, we have got a reaction stream of sorts for you. Another commitment that we are talking about after Big Cat weekend. Folks, I was skeptical. I was in disbelief. I did not believe that it was possible that we could get not just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. The big question is, are we done yet? As someone's already asking in the chat. We are here to talk about yet another commitment from Big Cat weekend, this one for 2025. We're going to get into all the things that you need to know about this guy right now, based on what we know currently at the time of his commitment, what it means for him, what it means for the class, what it means for Auburn football, the depth chart, all those things that we can kind of glean from it going forward. It's all fair game here, and we're going to get into it here. So make sure that you smash the like button, subscribe, follow wherever you're watching, whatever your available function to do is there. So make sure that you are enjoying our content by making sure you're following it. Let's get into it here and start right now at the top who we're talking about. Jared Smith. It's kind of I don't want to call him the icing on the cake that the week that was, because that takes away from the specialness of the rest of this week and even weekend of Big Cat weekend. But it really has felt like that culminating factor up to the end of this week. A lot of people had expected this to come. It's not a big shock, but 2025 edge position, we have him listed as a defensive line position of sorts in our title card, just for spacing reasons. I don't really that's important to you guys, but he is a edge rusher and expected to play that at the next level, that being hopefully Auburn football, if he follows through with his commitment and it remains part of the 2025 class. It is a interesting feat for Auburn to get so many out of Thompson, which is where he comes from, Thompson High School in Alabaster, Alabama. It's also an interesting feat for Auburn to be dominating and controlling the state for this class the way that they are. I know that you can't necessarily see that, but you can see it if I lean a little bit over there. They're doing pretty well in the state overall. So from Alabaster, from Thompson High School, we've already gotten several from there. I think this would be the third, maybe fourth from Thompson. The punter, him, and Anquan, I think, is also from there, Vegans. And I feel like I'm missing one other. Caleb Harris, I know, was also part of the previous class, was also from there. So just some interesting facts and correlations for you to know from that. So Jared Smith, his measurables for what we have him listed at currently, and this is obviously what we know at the time of everything right now. We're talking about a guy that's sitting in the range of somewhere between 6'6", approximately 6'6", 235 pounds, which puts him very nicely in an edge rusher position. A lot of people these days discuss, is it edge rusher? Is it defensive line? Is it more of a linebacker? It's really just a hybrid of all of that, which is sometimes why we can just kind of lump them into all of that. But his measurables line up quite nicely with that edge rusher position and makes him, as we'll talk about a little bit later in the class, a nice addition to what has already been a good class defensive line wise, edge rusher wise. So far, and it got started early with a familiar name too. Auburn had to beat out several prominent players for this guy. Lots of big names that you're aware of. The Georgias, the Ole Miss, South Carolinas, Southern Cal was in the mix apparently, or at least he went on a visit there. So there are a lot of people that Auburn had to fight off to get this commitment. Now, if you look online, you're going to see a lot of these stories popping up right now about him having an affinity towards Auburn from a very young age. And that's obviously a really great thing to hear. We hear that story a lot in the state of Alabama, right? We hear stories about families being divided, that their parents were actually Alabama fans, or the reverse, and they were Auburn fans or whatever. So that's part of this too. So that sounds like we've got a guy who's been looking to make this type of commitment for a long time throughout most of his life, and just needed to make sure that this is the best thing for him. And in a time where Auburn is definitely on a upward tick, especially in recruiting, this is definitely a time that it's good for him to commit and hopefully stay with the Tigers. Again, as much as I stress with you guys not to obsess about rankings, stars, all that things, he is considered a 4 to a 5-star, depending on where you look. Usually one of the top overall prospects in the state of Alabama. More on that in a little bit. We're going to talk a lot about this, like the significance of this commitment and what it means in relation to a lot of other things that happened throughout this. Obviously, his major recruiters were going to be DJ Durkin, but his positional coach, Josh Aldridge, who just moved over from linebackers or outside linebackers, I guess I should say, to the edge position. So 2 guys very heavily involved in getting him here to be part of this particular class. So we talked about where he's from, where he's going to play, measurables, storylines in and out of it, the connection to Big Cat Weekend. Again, this is one of those times that I stress to you, if your favorite player doesn't commit on Big Cat Weekend, do not stress. Do not stress. Just give it a little bit of patience. And you never know what might happen. They might actually commit just a week later. And who says we're done yet? We may not be. All right, let's talk about what it means. I spent a lot of time talking about some things to know about him. These are just the things that we can glean right now. Let's talk about what it means. I always like to start about with what the commitment means for the class as a whole. At the time, and that's what we're talking about, at the time of his commitment, because people commit later, decommit at the time of his commitment. This makes it 22 total commits in the class. If I did my math correctly, this makes it the 11th commit in the class for the state of Auburn. Not the state of Alabama, the state of Auburn. You've seen the chart, I'm sure. I forget which side it is to attribute it to, but of the top 10 in the state, Auburn has 8 of those. The other 2 belong to Ohio State. So you will hear some commentators from the other side telling you that I don't know that in-state recruiting matters as much anymore. It still does. It still does. And that's a huge, huge thing, whether people want to admit that or not. If I did my math correctly, it has him as the 2nd overall edge commit at this position, Caleb Falk, which was one of the early ones, brother to Falk, who's already here. And obviously a family connection there, and 2 really good guys to have as edge rushers coming in the class together. Very highly regarded in the state, very highly regarded by most people's standards. So that's going to make that really exciting there. And you've got some other defensive linemen, some other defensive end type guys that you might consider in the discussion with these guys, but the true edges, most people expect Caleb Falk, and of course, now Mr. Jared Smith. He's got to be careful here too, with Derek Smith being the last commit and Jared Smith being this commit. It's going to get a little confusing, from time to time. All right, so that's what it means for the class right now in terms of numbers, things like that. Let's talk about what it means in terms of his playing time potentially when he arrives. Now, we look at this by talking about maybe who is going to be here, who's he going to be competing with. Much easier to do with classes that are here now, or about to come in, rather than 2026, where we've got to talk about who's here now, who's going to leave, and then who would come in the class in between them. If you look at the edge position right now, you're going to find Jalen McLeod, Kieran Crawford, Amaris Williams, Jamonta Waller. Those last 2 names, and Joe Phillips too. All 3 of those names are brand new to the class. So they are going to be the next wave of guys. Jalen, this is his last year. Kieran's probably going to be around for another year to kind of give a little bit of senior leadership for that young group to build up. So what you're seeing here is with Caleb and now with Jared, the next wave behind them being built up. So while I will sit here and tell you, you can look at the numbers, you can look at who they're going to be playing behind and go, probably not going to see a lot of them early on. You always want to have guys that are talented enough, even if they're not as experienced at the college level, to be able to be in that rotation should injuries arise. And we've seen that happen with Jalen McLeod. So keep that in mind. Maybe we won't see them a lot early, but that's who could be gone. That's who will still be around. Some pretty big names that are going to factor in. And of course, some of these guys may move over to a linebacker position. Some of these guys may move down to defensive end. We saw Keldrick do that this past season. And so that can change from time to time. In-state recruiting. We talked about it a little bit already. Number 11 in the class. Auburn is dominating. This is the state of Auburn at this point, what we're talking about right now. So if things change, you Bama fans that like to come back later, let's talk about things in context. So that's a huge thing as well. To discredit in-state recruiting is to just being trying to cover up the wounds that are opened over there. And I've seen that. I think I'll credit to Zach Blackerby and his show. I've seen the at least commentary from that individual over there, the Alabama analyst that tried to pass that off, maybe as a soundbite to get things riled up, but it still is a very interesting take in and of itself. 11 total commits in this class thus far, and who says we're done yet, from the state of Alabama, taking care of home, especially when your biggest rival in the state, whether by choice or by just happenstance, seems to be neglecting that in-state recruiting. Huge year for Auburn football in 2025 in regards to the state of Alabama. Now, what does it mean for the rest of the class? That's the final thing that we want to talk about here. When we look at that depth chart a little bit earlier, you saw that we're only going to be probably losing one person at the edge rushing position. You've got another senior leader that's, well, a junior currently, but going to be a senior next year that's still going to be there, in a group of about 2 to 3 guys that are likely going to be true redshirt freshmen, true sophomores, somewhere in that are going to be the guys playing behind them. So these 2 guys, we're talking about Jacaleb Falk, and now, of course, for the purposes of the stream, we're talking about Jared Smith, are going to be probably, I should never say we are done yet, but I would get the feeling that the fact that we are losing one and bringing in 2, that the room there is a little bit full right now. Now, if certain players, maybe in the state or otherwise, that at the edge rush position want to come on in, I say we find some room for them, and I'm sure the coaches would. I would never, ever say that we are done yet at this position or in this class, because it sounds like there may be a few things out there still that may be waiting the wins at other positions. But the class is starting to get full. I would say this position is starting to get full as well. But we are never done yet, at least these days. All right. I saw a couple of comments and things coming in. So if you got any things about this specific commitment, folks, a lot of y'all like to move, already start thinking about the next one. Let's focus on this one. Anything about this one, celebrations, just anything to say about this kid, post it in the comments right now. We'll address those as our kind of last little hurrahs, final summary, all that kind of thing. Let me remind you of a couple of things coming up. Tomorrow night is our next opportunity to catch us on a scheduled live stream, the Auburn Experience Podcast, episode 88, 9 Eastern time on YouTube. Don't miss it. We're going to have a lot of fun talking about this all of this week, the post Big Cat stuff. We'll talk about first week of practice. We're going to talk about other Auburn sports, Auburn culture, Auburn family topics. So you do not want to miss that show. It's always good with Austin and myself. We also will do our Wednesday night show, which is our regular call-in show at 8 p.m. So join us for that if you can. Excuse me, guys. I brought the cue card up there a little bit too quick. You are also encouraged to follow us everywhere you can to get all the content that we have out for you. Facebook, Instagram, X, all the different things. So many good thoughts and celebrations came in from the very start of the show. So we appreciate a lot of you asking the question, are we done yet? Celebrating, getting excited about this. James says top 3 class on the way. Maybe so, but again, rankings only matter is if they end up working out on the back end of that. It's always fun to get excited about that, though at the time of it is. And a lot of people talking about the in-state recruiting and all that kind of stuff, getting excited over there. All right. Looks like 6'6", 230 is still smaller than Cam. Are you talking about Cam Coleman or Cam Newton? But there you go. A lot of people are super, super excited about all of these different things here. I want to thank you guys for tuning in to our impromptu live stream to talk about the latest commitment, Jared Smith. Want to welcome him to the class, and hopefully we will be talking about you on earlier National Signing Day as an official member of the Auburn family going forward. But for now, we're excited to have you, excited to talk about you. Those are the things that you need to know and what it means for him, the class, Auburn football going forward. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, being here, spending some time with us to be a part of the best little family within the Auburn family. Because let's be honest, it is the best little family within the Auburn family. Until we talk to you again, War Eagle.